minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
Jackpot. You get the horns. Jackpot.
What happened on this play is...
Trust me, we will talk about it. Unbelievable. Tony Romo, if you're listening, you suck. But yeah, welcome everybody. You get the horns sports, and we will have plenty to discuss tonight. Obviously, we will go ahead and honor the Super Bowl and have a little conversation around our thoughts on the Super Bowl, the results of the Super Bowl, maybe some things and opinions you will not have heard elsewhere. And then we'll just kind of have a little conversation as well, just about the closing out of the season and some of the awards from NFL honors and things like that. But first things first, of course, Tad and Jeff here. How you doing tonight, bro?
I'm freaking tired, dude.
Yeah.
Tell me why this game has to kick off at 6:40 p.m. 6:40. Why? Like, not 6:30.
Yeah.
Not 6. Not 7. 6:40. They finally decided to kick this thing off. Weird, man. I don't. Oh.
Yeah,
Start
I don't
this thing
get
at
it.
6 o'clock. Like, we're not worried about. Obviously, you're not worried about West Coast time because.
Right.
You're starting the game over there at what, 4:40? I mean,
right?
Or 3:40.
Yeah.
So obviously, we're just started at 6, man. Like,
yeah, it's
late.
The NFL does a lot of confusing things. I don't think we're ever going to understand a lot of it. There's got to be some reason for it that we will just never have the opportunity to make sense of. But yeah, look, let's talk about it, man. I mean, obviously, not like we're breaking any news here that the Kansas City Chiefs won the Super Bowl.
What? I went to bed at halftime. Yeah. Is that what happened?
But look, I mean, again, another Super Bowl for Patrick Mahomes, another Super Bowl win for the Kansas City Chiefs, another step closer to, kind of starting to reach the outer edges of levels of greatness that we just did not think we might ever see again, much less see this quickly. It's crazy. And then, you look at what's happening with Belichick and Andy Reid starting to kind of catch up with some of his numbers. And I mean, you can't say enough, regardless of whether you are a Chiefs fan or not, you can't really say enough about what they've been able to build in that organization. And one of the biggest things is just consistency. Andy Reid, Brent Veach, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, this core that they have, both front office core, obviously Steve Spagnuolo as defensive coordinator, and then, who knows what's going to happen with Bieniemy, but he was a stalwart there for years and years. And Matt Nagy's back in the fold there, this year as offensive coordinator. So, you have just a ton of consistency in that organization. The place where you don't have consistency with the Chiefs is really at the wide receiver position. Outside of that, you've had tons of consistency. And so it enables them to be creative and to unroll new things as the season goes on because they've been doing it the same way for years and years with the same players. So they can kind of add complexity that most teams can't because they just have not had that level of consistency within their organization for such a long period of time. So, what are your thoughts, I guess, before we talk about anything else, just about the Chiefs as an organization?
I mean, geez, dude, what is there left to say? I mean, I wasn't ready for this, right? I mean, like, I don't have this much time left in this world that I can afford another 20 years of one team just dominating everything. Like, it's just, Look,
well,
man,
I think I said it last night in our group chat, or it was last night or today, that I said I felt like I could see the Chiefs winning 3 of the next 5 Super Bowls. I think that's very realistic.
And they've already won 3 of the last 5 Super Bowls. So
right.
You're saying 3 more
3
of
the next 5.
5. Could you imagine, dude? Like, it's just, if there was ever a year that someone was going to dethrone the Chiefs after all the stuff they've been through, this was the year. Like, how do you beat them? I mean, they they played. It was something ridiculous, like I can't remember when they had their bye, but they've essentially played like 9, 10 weeks in a row. It's just it was the absolute perfect time for someone to take them down. This is the 30 Patrick Mahomes' cat hit can't talk cap hit this year. I told you I was tired. Was 37 million this year. That's the largest ever for a quarterback, or for a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Dude, this was prime time to be able to take these guys down, and nobody could take them down. I don't know what else there is that anyone can do. Like, what do you do if you're Washington, if you're Carolina, when you see this? Like, do you have any hope? I mean, even the Niners were dominant, right? I mean, the Niners aren't going anywhere. So are we just going to have just complete battles every year of Chiefs and Niners for the next 3 out of the next 5 years?
I mean, look, I think it's a heck of a lot easier to get there in the NFC than it is the AFC.
100%.
So I think from that perspective, like, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, the Niners have the talent, but it wouldn't surprise me if other teams pop up in the NFC. I think that could be a rotating cast. I think the AFC is really going to come down to health, because there are only, as it stands right now, there are 3 or 4 teams that are the best teams in the AFC. Now, there's a flyer every year. There's some new team that pops up. You know, that's going to happen. But really, you figure Baltimore, Buffalo, Kansas City, and then someone else. And that someone else could be someone different year to year. Could be Miami, could be Houston, could be Pittsburgh if they get something figured out at quarterback. Which, by the way, breaking news, I just saw that they have officially parted ways with Mitch Trubisky there in Pittsburgh. Which I'm pretty confident the rest of the league has also mutually parted ways with Mitch Trubisky. I don't see there being a lot of opportunity for him out there.
He'll catch on somewhere. I mean, he will. I mean, again, the talent is there for Trubisky. I mean, the dude has... he's right up there with just about any other quarterback as far as overall talent. He's got the arm strength. He's got the mobility. He's got the ability to run. It's just something in the head, man. I don't know what it is. Maybe someone can unlock it. Maybe he goes to Kansas City and he learns under Reid Mahomes for a few years.
Yeah.
And then he pops up somewhere. Like he would
one
be
of the best jobs in
spot.
football. Sit behind Patrick Mahomes, man. I mean, we saw Chase Daniels do it, and I mean, it's a great job. It's a great gig if you can get it. You're not going to have to play much. You're going to win Super Bowls, you know.
Yeah,
and
why not? Why not go there and learn and see how they do it and build off of that? But man, I don't know. I mean, the Chiefs defense was the youngest defense in the NFL this year.
Yeah.
So
they're only going to get better.
They're only going to get better. I mean, outside of a catastrophic injury to someone, say Mahomes or something like that, just they're going to be the perennial favorites every single year. I mean, I think right now, I don't know, the Chiefs are probably second. The Niners already are the favorites for next year, according to Vegas. But outside of something that any true football fan wouldn't want to happen, and I get it, like if you're a fan of another team, you maybe you're wishing for, if you're an awful person, you're wishing for a catastrophic injury, right?
Right.
But outside of that, I mean, they're just going to be there year in and year out. Yeah, I was thinking about this, and I wanted to get your thought. If you are a fly on the wall, let's say you're this hypothetical fly that can listen in and understand English. If you're in an NFL board meeting, and I'm not talking about owners meeting, I'm talking about Goodell and all of his henchmen. Do you want this? Do you want a dominant team like this year in and year out? Because it's going to wear thin at some point. Like, people are going to tune out. You're going to get the crazy numbers. Don't get me wrong. But you're trying to build an audience. And this year you just caught lightning in a bottle, with Kelce and and Taylor Swift and all that stuff. But at some point, people are going to be like, it's the Chiefs again. It's the Chiefs again. Like, I'm not even going to tune in. They may lose 10 million, 20 million viewers because, again, it's the Chiefs. Everything is always stacked. And this is what I love about the NFL. Everything is stacked that everyone is essentially a 500 team, right? With free agency, salary cap, draft positions, everyone's kind of stacked right at that 50% mark. Some are better, some are worse, whatever. But the Chiefs are just on another level. Do you think they want a repeat of the New England Patriots?
Well, the question's interesting, and I guarantee you the NFL has studied this quite a bit. And my thinking on this with regards to just what the NFL would want, I believe that there are also very high ratings when a team is hated because people want to see the team lose. So it becomes a win-win if you're the NFL, because it's like at a certain point, if the NFL finds that, okay, hey, those Patriots dynasty years, man, there were tons of people that watched those games because they wanted to finally see somebody beat the Patriots. And I don't rule out the possibility of that being the same for the Chiefs, that maybe the NFL does want it, because what do you really want, right? Like, would you rather see Jacksonville get on some weird fluke run and be in the Super Bowl against, I don't even know, some other junk market team that, isn't really as relevant on a large
Jacksonville,
scale?
Carolina. Do you want to see Jacksonville,
or Arizona
Carolina?
Or somebody, right? It's like,
right.
You don't want that in your Super Bowl. And so I do think there's a little bit of that thing from their perspective of, hey, those dynasties, right? The NBA was not anti-dynasty with Jordan and everything else. And there had to be a reason for that. And so I do think sometimes dynasties are good for business, and I think that they're pretty good for business in the NFL. So in theory, based on the idea that the NFL always preaches parity, you would think, no, they wouldn't want to see a Chiefs dynasty. But we know that the NFL preaches one thing and practices another. And so, while they may say they want parity, and that's not only to the teams in the league, but that's to the fans of the league, because they want you to feel like every season, when the season is kicking off, that you have hope, that things are not ruined for you immediately. Like, you should be buying your merchandise, and you should be, getting those tickets and doing everything else to support your team because there's hope. And then, that's not really what they're selling. They're selling dynasties, they're selling victory, they're selling, upsets. That's what they want. And so, yeah, I don't think they have a problem. I really don't think the NFL minds a dynasty here.
Yeah, I wonder. That's a good point. It's good for business. You're right.
And think about it. Their best young star, who's already in tons of commercials all over the place, talking about Patrick Mahomes, of course. So Mahomes is in every third commercial you see on TV. The only guy who's doing more commercials is Travis Kelce. So the Chiefs players are in all of these commercials. They're all over the place right now. And so it's like, yeah, why not? Why not take advantage of it? As you said, they hit lightning in a bottle this year. But in general, I think you're probably going to see a lot more Chiefs. I think you're going to see, like I said, I think the Chiefs could be in 3 of the next 5 Super Bowls. And if they were there, you got to assume that they're going to win. They're going to be hard to beat. You have to step on their throat. Like, you will not win very often a close game against the Chiefs. It's not going to happen. And the reason why is because of everything that we've talked about a million times. I mean, I feel like I've said it every week now for however many weeks that I've been betting on the Chiefs, basically. Best coach, best quarterback. And I said going into the Super Bowl, I was calling 23-20 Chiefs. Almost went 24-21. Said 23-20. Niners missed the extra point. Otherwise, I would have been looking a whole lot better. But the reality is, that's like I said, I would bet the under and the Chiefs. And it went down almost exactly that way. Now, that doesn't mean I'm some genius or anything. It's just that, that's the feeling that I got, is that, and I even texted it in our group chat as the game was going on. It was like late third quarter or something. And I said, the longer this game goes like this, the more likely it is that the Chiefs are going to win. And I don't know if that was halftime or third quarter, but that was my point, is you're letting it stay close. If it's going to stay close, the Chiefs are going to win. That's the bottom line.
That's it. I want to switch it up for 2 seconds. Let's talk just about the Niners and specifically Kyle Shanahan. This man blew a 25-point lead in Super Bowl 51, a 10-point lead in Super Bowl 54, and now a 10-point lead in Super Bowl 58.
Yeah.
Do you think he's a choke artist? Now, of course, he's not the coach, the head coach in Super Bowl 51, but he was the author of that offense, and they went amazingly conservative in that game. That's not pointed out enough. Like, yeah, the comeback was amazing, but that team went super conservative.
Yeah,
and
they were scared to lose.
And they didn't put their they didn't come in there and try to stomp on them. They were just playing not to lose at that point. Some people are calling him a choke artist. Is that a fair assessment?
I'm going to say no. I'm going to say it's not a fair assessment to call Kyle Shanahan a choke artist at this point. Because, look, yes, you could say, oh, he blew a 10-point lead last night. At no point did it feel like that 10-point lead was like much of a gap, right? I mean, this was not like, oh, they opened it up and somehow they blew it. This wasn't losing to the Patriots, right? This wasn't, the Super Bowl, thing before. This was a close game that could have gone either way. And they lost to the best quarterback in the NFL and one of, if not the best quarterbacks in history, and one of the best head coaches in the history of the NFL. That's who they lost to. Most teams are going to lose that. Most teams, even in a 10-point game against the Chiefs, if they have a 10-point lead, they're still probably going to lose that game. So do I love everything that he did? No. But, at the same time, look, Brock Purdy's no Patrick Mahomes either. And there were opportunities, but, if you look, the first half of that game, Purdy looked pretty good. But when you look at halftime, him and Mahomes had basically identical stats. And then in the second half, it was all Mahomes and Purdy was non-existent. And the Niners completely went away from the run game. And the moment that you move away from Christian McCaffrey,
who then had it's 160 yards of total offense.
Right. So it's like this is the best player on the field anytime that offense is on the field. He's better than any Chiefs player on defense. He's better than any other Niners player on offense. This is the best player on the field when the Niners offense is on the field. And you're not giving him the ball. And this idea that they were saying, Shanahan said that he wants McCaffrey to have 30 carries this game. Well, he could have, but he didn't. If you really wanted him to have 30 carries, you probably should have given him the ball 30 times because you'd have been in a much tighter game. The problem is it's not dissimilar, and in a lot of ways it's almost identical to what happened with the Ravens. In that it's a close game, but a 10-point swing made you move away from your core competency. And the thing is, though, the Niners were the one that had the 10-point lead. It's even weirder. At least with Baltimore, you were down by 10. San Francisco's up by 10. Why would you not be just grinding the ball out, running the ball at that point? I don't understand that.
Well, then that kind of comes back to what is he just not the offensive play genius that everyone makes him out to be? Or what is it about big games that makes him go away from that? Because now you're saying you were kind of an idiot for not building upon that 10-point lead and at least nursing the clock a little bit more where you didn't give Mahomes that. So there's maybe some validity to that. He just does not know how to close out a big game. And that's, that's an issue. That's a big issue. I mean, you would think after the first two, you would learn, and maybe that's what it was. We can't keep running the ball because we need to try and put them away.
Right. But
you're putting your hands into a guy that's played, a year and a half, maybe a year and 3/4, I don't know, a quarter in Purdy. So I don't know. What do you think about them taking the ball in overtime? I swear to you, I don't think they understood the rule.
Well, dude, you've seen all the stuff that's come out, or maybe you haven't, I don't know, that the Niners players, several Niners players have come out and said that they were unfamiliar with the new overtime rules, that they did not know this. Rule. Meanwhile, the Chiefs players have said that it was hammered into them every overtime scenario during every playoff round and the Super Bowl. Like they were talking through it, practicing it all the time. Niners players have said they were unaware of the new overtime rules and they didn't understand that. So,
But again,
I don't know what to say about that.
but then that again, that falls back on coaching. You're just not prepared. Like you don't
Yeah.
have every single X's and O's down.
Yes. 100%. If that's true, that's a absolute coaching issue. I don't know how in the world you're going into the Super Bowl and your players are unaware of what happens in overtime.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem possible.
I was so confused when there was like, I don't know, was it 10 seconds left in the first overtime? And I'm like, and they're like, yeah, no, it's just going to roll over into the second quarter.
Right, just
of
keeps
overtime.
going.
What an odd setup that is. It's just a very, very odd. I don't, I'm not a big fan. I just, that's weird to me, man.
Yeah.
Like, I just, like, why wouldn't that then just go into the next overtime or what have you? Because that really changed the complexity of that game. They knew that they didn't have to, score there. It's not like they did obviously, but I just think it caught the Niners completely off guard. Like, oh, they're going to have to go for a field. Wait, why are they not going? Why are they? Why is this clock running? What are they doing? And I think it just threw them completely off. And again, I think that just comes back to coaching. Like, how can you have your guys at the end of the game say, yeah, we had no clue what was going on there?
Right.
You got
yeah,
one team.
even if that's true, don't say it, man. Like, do you understand how much damage you were doing to the reputation of your head coach and the whole coaching staff when you say something like that? Like, oh, we didn't know they changed the rules when nobody told us. Like, that's not a good look, man. That is not a good look
at all. And that it makes me think that they didn't understand it because, like, I guess you could make the argument of like, well, the Chiefs just went on that long drive to tie it,
right?
So maybe the defense is a little tired. But I mean, the Chiefs knew what they had to do, and they knew they had 3 in their pocket at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, Butker probably, arguably, could have been the MVP of that game. And so they knew they had the 3 in the pocket. So they knew what they had to do. All right, let's just get in field goal range, and anything above that is a Super Bowl win at that point. So that's why I was like, man, why are they taking the ball here? It just, and the only explanation, and maybe they've come out and said why they took it. I don't know. I was way too busy today to be watching all the post game press conferences, but only thing that made sense is that he wanted to give this defense a rest. But
I think that's all it was. Yeah, I think that's the number one thing it was you look at how the game had ended, like regulation had ended, and that their defense was on the field, long drives in the fourth quarter, 6-minute drive by the Chiefs and stuff, just wearing out that Niners defense. You had to give that defense a rest because otherwise it's like they're just going to give up that drive. It's going to end the same way, except it would have been the first drive of overtime. Like the Chiefs would have just marched right downfield. So it's got to give them some rest. But, you couldn't move the ball. I mean, the Niners just went away from doing the thing they do best. And they, unfortunately, kind of played into the Chiefs' hands a little bit. You can't throw the ball and have that be your main game plan because you don't have the advantage in that area. I mean, what did Kittle have? Like, I don't even remember now. 2 catches for 7 yards or something like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was ridiculously low. Yeah,
maybe
he played for 11 or something. No,
so he had no role in that game. Debo obviously wasn't overly impactful, but then also had the hamstring thing out for a little while. Then gets back in the game. Made a couple plays.
Almost every other game is a Debo injury. I mean, that's it's a Ferrari, man. It's like awesome when it works, but
But the thing is, you're not getting the ball in his hands either way. So it doesn't matter if he's on the field or not. He's not getting the ball. So once he's not getting the ball, once you have a Debo Samuel not getting the ball and a George Kittle not getting the ball, Ayuk did very little, then you're no longer getting – you're going into – like you would say, okay, those are our best players on offense, right, other than McCaffrey. But – that's also what the Chiefs are doing best on defense with L'Jarius Sneed and Trent McDuffie. So then you're going, okay, well, that neutralizes our strength. But they don't really have anyone that's going to be able to neutralize the strength of Christian McCaffrey. And in the beginning of the game, the Niners were moving that ball with McCaffrey up and down the field, man. And then it just seemed like, of course, the Chiefs tightened up. They did better. And then, over time, the Niners moved away from it for whatever
Yeah.
reason.
This was a weird Super Bowl, man. We even texted, when we were in our group chat, man, just texting just how weird it was, man. It was just everything. I mean, you see McCaffrey get fumble, which I don't know. What has he done? Never. Like, I don't know. It was the second time this year or something ridiculous that he's fumbled. I mean, it was a great play. And then, Chiefs don't do anything with it. Pacheco ends up fumbling. I mean, it's just Mahomes throws honestly a really bad interception.
Yeah.
You just had all sorts of stuff. I mean, it's crazy too. Like, I would have loved to have seen, had the Niners won, who would have been MVP. That first quarter, Chase Young was probably going to be the MVP. And then at one point, it was going to be Juwan Jennings. Like, that dude was you look at that play that they ended up having to settle for a field goal, and I believe this was still in regulation, where Jennings beat his guy, and I believe it was Jones who got right in Purdy's face and made him throw that ball off. If he catches that, I mean, now he's got 2 touchdown catches and he's got a touchdown pass.
Yeah.
Imagine him being like NFL MVP, Super Bowl MVP. I mean, it was, so many what ifs there in that game. It's just, it's so disappointing. So,
yeah. It was interesting, man. It's an interesting game. I thought it felt like an anticlimactic Super Bowl to me.
Yeah.
The lead up to it, the commercials sucked. The halftime performance was just kind of average. Like, everything just felt weak to me. Like, everything just kind of felt watered down. Nothing. It didn't feel like the normal event that that the Super Bowl feels like.
But again, it's the same 2 teams that were in it, 3 years ago, 2 years ago. I mean, it's kind of like just people at some point, people just get tired of it. Like, especially, that's what I say. Like, the Chiefs are in it, and it's, some random NFC team. But what are we going to do if it's 3 of the next 5 years, it's the Niners and the Chiefs? Like, at some point, people are going to be tuning out. Like, dude, this is awful. Like, we've seen this. Like, the Chiefs are just going to beat them, and here we are again. The Niners are going to be the Buffalo Bills of the 90s. It's just, it was really anticlimactic. And I saw people like posting like this might be the greatest Super Bowl halftime show of all time. And I'm like, what was I missing? Yeah, I think like RG3 came out and was saying stuff. And then, there's a few others that I'd seen on X, like just posting like this was amazing. Like,
you're just trying to get reaction at that point. You can't really think that. You cannot think that halftime show was the best ever.
I was like, dude, he came out and I was like, bro, he's coming out like maybe it's a tribute, but he's coming out. He had the 2 gloves on, the 2 sequin gloves. I was like, I was there with like my, I was watching it with my brother-in-law and sister-in-law and family. I was like, dude, he's just coming out to try to be Michael Jackson. And he's like, oh, he's got 2 gloves. And the next thing I looked, I was like, nope, he just got 1 on.
But did you see in the commercial before the halftime show, the BMW commercial with Christopher Walken, Usher was in that commercial, and he had 1 glove on.
Yeah, like
in the commercial. So clearly, that's just a thing that he's trying to do, is just to look cool and have a glove for whatever reason. But that's not like that wasn't just for the halftime show or anything.
I mean, he was coming out doing the like Michael Jackson dance. Look, we texted like, it was fine. It was okay. Like, give me 2 years ago, when you had Dre and all those guys there, give me that. That was cool, right? But I mean, it was cool to see like some people come out. Like, Kanye made a weird appearance, and then Jermaine Dupri like came out looking like what is he wearing? We're all like, is that Jermaine?
I had no idea it was Jermaine. At first, I thought it was CeeLo, and then
that's what everyone said.
Yeah,
everyone was like, I thought that was CeeLo, and then I'm like, wait, that's Jermaine Dupri. Oh my gosh,
so weird, man.
It's just weird bits. I mean, Ludacris coming out, Little John coming out, like that was like okay, it was fine. Look, there was nothing wrong with it, but it didn't move the needle for me. I'm sorry. And then the commercials, Now, here's the thing too. who in the world, like, this might be better for our main show topic here because we're going to get into some stuff, but the two now these were $7 million ads, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Like they were 7 million per 30-second spot. There were two commercials that came up just talking about like Tesla and their self-driving cars and how it should be banned. Did you get those on yours?
I don't remember seeing that.
There were
I can't,
two
I
ads.
can't, I can't say I definitely didn't because I really wasn't paying that close attention all the time. But I have no recollection of seeing those. And they did air, of course, some local commercials. They always do during the Super Bowl. So that may have been more of a local commercial.
It might have
don't know.
been. I saw it twice, and they were like, was pretty much like, I don't know, it was like, one of those, vote for this or that type of thing, and it was an ad about like Tesla and their self-driving cars, how like, and it showed like just a dummy child, and it was kind of funny, but it was like showing
I didn't have that.
a dummy child and like the Tesla car running over the child.
Right.
Like, see, it doesn't work. I was like, okay, clearly they're not the ones paying for this ad. Like, this has to be like, nobody said anything. That's why I was like, well, maybe this is a local thing. Like, but it was weird. Why would it be a local thing where I'm at? And like, we're not that far from each other. So I have no clue. I mean, I'm closer to DC, I guess, but at the same time, I was like, why is nobody saying like, where did you get this money from?
Right.
To put these ads on this TV. Like, this has to be like, Ford or Chrysler or someone like funding this money to this company. It was just so odd and weird. Again, the commercial stopped being funny, I don't know, 10 years ago. I mean, I don't even know what the last funny commercial was. Like, there was like a history of Volkswagen. I'm like, dude, am I at a museum here? Like, what is happening?
And the problem is that the commercials have gotten so expensive for the Super Bowl that no one's willing to spend the money to be that creative and come up with things. The only thing they try to do now is just hire some celebrities and stick them in there. I mean, like the stupid like T-Mobile commercial that, like, how much did you pay Bradley Cooper and all these other people to show up in a T-Mobile commercial? I can't even imagine any scenario that Bradley Cooper's cell phone has T-Mobile service on it.
That's what I love about that stuff. Like, Bradley Cooper's just going around with a T-Mobile cell phone.
It's like, come on, man. It's ridiculous.
I know.
Hey, just so you know, so a couple things from the live stream. A little earlier, Dr. Doyle, who's a big Chiefs fan, jumped in and was very pumped, said, yeah, go Chiefs. And Dustin Walker was watching us, and he said that he saw that Tesla commercial that you're referencing. He lives in Southern Maryland, and he saw that Tesla commercial. Okay. So, all right. Yeah, it could be like maybe, I don't know, some sort of a Mid-Atlantic or DMV type thing there. Where that was
so weird. But, I mean, even a local commercial, I'm sure they're spending a couple $1 million for this. Right. Yeah. So, very weird. And I was like, dude, where did you get your money to be able to just bash on Tesla? Very weird. So, overall, I thought Super Bowl was meh. It was fun. I mean, the ending to me, I mean, when we texted, I think that my response was gross. Like, it just, the ending was just so anticlimactic. Like, you just knew what was going to happen when they got the ball back after they didn't score a touchdown. Good on the Chiefs. Look, man, if I was a fan of the Chiefs, I would be pumped. Like, I'm like, hey, hate us all you want. Let us win the next, 3 of the next 5 Super Bowls coming up. I mean, nothing against them, man, at all. It was just like, oh, man. And I think it's more so.
Dustin, who's watching us, says that he thinks the biggest competition to the Chiefs in the AFC would be the Bills, and in the NFC will be the Niners.
I mean, I don't think he's wrong. I mean, I'll be curious to see, give Harbaugh a couple of years. Say what you want about Harbaugh, but the dude builds perennial winners everywhere he goes, always has, and he always will. There's talks that he wants Saquon in San Diego at this point. Whatever. The Chargers. He wants Saquon there. So, I mean, and with Herbert, like that they'll be a formidable, I think. Oh, yeah. I mean, so I just, dude, I mean, what the Chiefs ran through this year I mean, you probably, the Bills were the hottest team coming into the playoffs.
Yeah.
You have the Ravens, who arguably, we haven't really talked about it, but I don't know, top 10, top 15 defense of all time. I mean, just the way they went through every single team to get there, boy, it just doesn't. And I think this is probably more why my response was gross, because it's like, dude, who was going to beat these guys? Like, outside of something that I don't want to see happen, which would be a major injury, or, Andy Reid retiring and the next coach coming in not having a clue what's going on. Like, who's going to beat these people, man? Like, it's just, like, come on, man. I lived through the Brady era. I don't want to have to live through. By the time the Mahomes era is done, like, I probably won't even remember what football is.
No, man, this dude is very, very early on. I mean, we talked last week or week before about Brady versus Mahomes over the first 6 years of their career and the stats. I now have year 7. Like, they're through 7 seasons, and I can run it through with you really briefly. But I will tell you, if I were to ask you now, again, sight unseen, right? But if I were to ask you which one of these players you would rather have, and I just went off of the stats, there is a 0% chance that you would be picking Tom Brady over Patrick Mahomes. Their first 7 years, they each have played 96 games. The records slightly different. Mahomes has a 74-22 record. Brady has a 70-24 record. So again, not a huge swing, but completion percentage. Mahomes is 5 points higher than Brady. He's thrown for 7,000 more yards than Brady. His passing yards average is about a yard more. Passing yards per game, Brady's under 225. Mahomes is over 296. Passing touchdowns thrown through the first 7 seasons, Brady threw 147. Mahomes has thrown 219. Interceptions, Brady threw 78. Mahomes has thrown 63. Quarterback rating, Brady 88.4. Mahomes 103.5. Rushing attempts, obviously Mahomes has more. It's like 135 more rushing attempts. But Brady had 435 rushing yards. Mahomes has 1,936. 3 rushing touchdowns for Brady, 12 for Mahomes. And then, of course, obviously you can get into fantasy points too. But each of them has won 3 championships. Brady went to 3 Pro Bowls in his first 7 seasons. Mahomes has had 6 Pro Bowls. Brady was a 1-time All-Pro. Mahomes 3-time All-Pro. Brady had not yet won an MVP. Mahomes already has 2. Brady had not won an Offensive Player of the Year. Mahomes has 1. Brady had 2 Super Bowl MVPs. Mahomes now has 3. Like, it isn't close between these 2 players if you're going over their first 7 years. Now, again, it's the next 7. It's the next 10. That's the thing that really makes the difference, because there's a lot of guys that burn bright for a short period of time. And it's not just about his play, but it's going to be, is an Andy Reid there for another 10 years? No. You can't imagine.
And I would say no.
So then what happens after that? It's, that consistency the Patriots had, very hard to replicate.
Yeah, it's hard because you had like Belichick and Brady kind of at the peaks. I think Belichick had been there, I don't even know, 2 years, something like that. Like he wasn't there long. So they had their whole entire careers. Listen, not enough is being said about Andy Reid and how great he is. This is what, 9th or 10th? He's been to the AFC, the championship game 9 or 10 out of his years.
I mean, this was their 6th straight. So yeah, right. I mean, it's just incredible.
Yeah. And then Steve Spagnuolo. What can you say about this dude? Maybe the best defensive coordinator. I mean, he's going to rank right up there as one of the best defensive coordinators of all time. Someone that we didn't even hear his name mentioned in the coaching circles this year. And maybe it's a situation where he doesn't want to be, or maybe there's something in place that he is going to be the heir apparent to Andy Reid. I mean, there's so much there that, how has he not gotten a second chance? I understand things didn't go great his first go around,
Yeah, but it
man,
wasn't an embarrassment or something. Like he wasn't just like some jerk who couldn't do the job at all.
But
considering all the other people that get second, third, fourth, and fifth chances.
That's exactly it. I mean, Ron Rivera gets let go and he's immediately picked up and spends the next 5 years being a coach of a dumpster fire of a team. Like, coaches get recycled all the time. And you got someone like that, like, man, I mean, good on the Chiefs. I'm sure the Chiefs are not disappointed that he hasn't gotten any, head coaching offers. But yeah, I mean, the work he's done there is just amazing. And he's working with the youngest defense in the league.
Yeah. Pretty good. All right. So, we should get ready to wrap this sucker up. We do want to talk, though, before we wrap it up. We'd be remiss if we didn't touch on the fact that there were some awards given out. Of course, we had NFL honors. And so, we have a few little things that we can touch on there. Don't have to spend a huge amount of time with it, but Lamar Jackson wins his second MVP award. First one was unanimous. This one, he gets 49 of 50. And the thing that's crazy too, he gets 49 of 50. And the one guy who doesn't vote for him is a Buffalo Bills reporter, and who's obviously just, a homer there. And everyone's kind of been talking like as if you would have thought Josh Allen got second place in MVP. He got like fifth place. It wasn't close. It was just this one guy that voted for him, instead of Lamar, that really ended up making it something that caught a lot of attention.
Right.
But yeah, so I think we've got, the stuff there, and there's a couple things, right? So Lamar Jackson at this point, the 11th player in the entire history of the NFL to win MVP multiple times. I mean, the list of people, it's Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Jim Brown, Brett Favre, Johnny Unitas, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Montana, Steve Young, Kurt Warner. Every one of them who's eligible has been inducted into the Hall of Fame. We talked last week or week before, I don't even remember now, about whether or not Lamar Jackson was already a Hall of Famer based on, what's been accomplished so far. And that was assuming he was going to win another MVP. Right now he has won another MVP. You can't imagine a scenario where that guy, how are you going to be one of only 11 people to ever do it and you're not going to be in the Hall of Fame, right? I mean, the guy's clearly, I have to believe, a Hall of Famer at this point, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, what if he peters out the rest of his career, or if his career, let's say, ended in the next 3 years and the last 3 years were uninspiring, do you think he still makes it?
The question's interesting because, let me break down just a little bit. So we know that he's a two-time MVP. This is in 6 years. Two-time MVP. He's been a two-time first-team All-Pro, three-time Pro Bowler. He led the NFL in touchdowns in 2019. These are the records that Lamar Jackson holds. Single-season rushing yards by a quarterback, 1,000-yard rushing seasons by a quarterback, number of games with a perfect passer rating in a single season, games with 100 rushing yards by a quarterback, and playoff games with 100 yards rushing by a quarterback. So between a two-time MVP, and both of them really should have been unanimous, and then all those other things, I don't know. I mean, it'd be hard to think that he's not going to. When you've got guys, I mean, think how long Calvin Johnson played in the league. And he got in. Terrell Davis, very short career. So yeah, I would just find it hard to believe that he wouldn't get in. If it were to end today, I gotta believe he's probably still getting in.
Yeah, possible. Yeah, I mean, we don't disagree a lot on this show because we kind of have the same mindset. But I'm still confused as to I don't. The dude didn't lead in any passing categories this year.
Yeah.
So are we just saying because he rushes and he runs the ball a lot? Like, I mean, he only had 24 passing touchdowns this year, and that's got to be the lowest. I mean, I don't know, probably dating back to the 1980s or something, that someone's going to win MVP of the league. And what was he? I think he was tied for 11th in the league in passing touchdowns.
Might have
so
been,
like. Maybe it was just one of those off years. It just like I just feel like his like I don't know where the And I don't know. I guess I don't disagree that he's MVP. I guess I don't care whether or not he was MVP or not. But I don't know where did the like hype come from? Because again, like we talked about it, he had a top 10 defense of all time. And, is it just the injuries and what they overcome there? But that's every year for the Ravens. It feels like what is it that made him like almost unanimous MVP this year, considering like other quarterbacks and wide receivers and, had some fantastic years.
I mean, look, I'll tell you more from the perspective of what I've heard said by people that had the vote, which is just that, and this was, I'm paraphrasing this because the same type of thing was said by an awful lot of people, which was watch the games and the impact that he's having. Like when it comes to value, right? So the ability to throw the ball and run the ball, the evolution of his game, the overall just impact that he's had on games, and they were the best team in the league. And so automatically when you're the best team in the league, clearly that you just get more attention on you regardless. He also played huge in really high profile games, which is also a really important aspect of it. When you look at, New Year's, Christmas night, all of these things,
the Niners game, I think is probably what really just turned everyone around. But again, like that for me felt more of like just the Ravens defense, just completely embarrassing the 49ers. Like I
mean, that was definitely a big part of it for sure. Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I think, again, people can certainly disagree on it, right? I think that the experts seem to all feel it pretty consistently because of just like, I think it's the combination of what he's bringing to the table, right? It's because he doesn't like, if you look at it from the perspective of, I don't know, some quarterback that throws for a ton of yards, right? It's like, okay, well, that's good. That's one dimensional, and it's an important dimension. Or if a running back or a wide receiver rushes for a ton of yards, it's the same type of thing. That's why it's so hard, like we've talked about it before, for anyone other than a quarterback to even win the award, right?
Yeah.
If Tyreek had broken 2,000 yards, then it's like, okay, maybe you could get into it, but they faded down the stretch and he disappeared.
Yeah.
Purdy, same sort of thing, obviously, with the game against the Ravens, and just, wasn't going to be the MVP based on how the last couple of weeks went. I think it was that combination of Lamar played incredibly well going against the best teams in the league. And so when you do that, that just does a lot of the work for you. I mean, it really does, at least in my opinion, and what I've heard as well.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I just, it's just to be so like everybody thought he was, and I'm like, all right, I've seen enough games. Like, yeah, the dude's fantastic, but I mean, there were certain games that he didn't play that great. I mean, but yeah. I guess that's kind of with all of them. I mean, I think Tyreek had the golden opportunity to break that streak. And then we talked about this, I don't know, probably 7 weeks ago at this point, but he had the opportunity, if he could have broken that record, to win the MVP because of how inconsistent Tua was with the turnovers.
Yeah.
Like there was never going to be like that. That is the way you do it. You can break 2,000 yards and your quarterback is inconsistent and throws, terrible mistakes. So,
yeah.
And
honestly, it was also, I think for Lamar, just to throw this in there too, I think a lot of it was just not only what he did, but when he did it, right? If you look at just the month of December for Lamar, just December alone, he had 11 touchdowns and 2 interceptions in that period of time. His quarterback rating, he had 2 of those games were over 105 quarterback rating. One of them was a perfect 158.3. And then the other one, or he had one other one that was I think a 90, looks like 93, 92.8. out of those games. And so part of that was it as well. I think it was just the timing of, he did it, and then when he did it and who he did it against. Because if you look at that month of December for them, I mean, that's the Rams, Jags, Niners, Dolphins. And, he went 11 touchdowns, 2 picks, against those teams, and over 100 quarterback rating. So, I definitely think that's really what iced it for sure.
It could, yeah. I mean, that's probably it. I mean, but Mr. November, Mr. Dak Prescott, what do you have? 16 touchdowns, 1 pick, in the month of November, and I don't think anyone even remotely was considering him for MVP, and
right.
very well should have been in the mix. But it's almost like a bias with this stuff anymore, like where everyone gets fixated. And again, I'm not saying Lamar doesn't deserve to be MVP. Clearly, 49 out of 50 writers thought that he should be MVP, so they know way more than I do. But there's almost like a bias of like, yeah, well, but Dak's going to mess it up, or the Cowboys are going to mess it up. There's just almost like this, like they can't separate any of this. Like, yeah, they're the Cowboys. They're going to choke going down the stretch. And really, they didn't. It was just when they got to the playoffs, they did. But there was really no whispers at all. I mean, Dak had one of the best Novembers in recent memory, but it was.
But he didn't have the same December.
True, but even in November, who in the world had any, like, it was still Lamar in November. It was still maybe Tyreek, maybe Christian McCaffrey, maybe Brock Purdy. Like, there was never any mention of Dak possibly being it. So I just wonder, like, if there's just this inherent bias sometimes with this kind of stuff.
Oh, I'm sure there probably is.
And I don't know how there couldn't be, right? I mean, nobody likes Jerry Jones, right? Or, that's the perception anyways. So like I as a writer, I'm not going to vote for him. It's just, we'll probably get to it, and we're running late again. We always do, but it's like Myles Garrett was the darling choice for Defensive Player of the Year before the season even began. They've been wanting to somehow give this award to Myles Garrett forever. I mean, since he's come into the league, they've wanted to. And he's a phenomenal player. He's a fantastic player.
Yeah.
But the dude had 1 sack in the last 6 games of the year. What impact did he make? We came up with a stat. Tell me any year besides this year that we heard about pass rush win rate.
Right.
What does that even mean? You beat your guy? Well, you didn't get the sack, obviously, because you had 1 in the last 6 games. What does that mean? Like, you just made up a stat. Like, PFF, I think, is just like I can just imagine them just rubbing coconut oil all over their bodies when everyone starts talking about pass rush win rate. Like, oh, yeah, we came up with this. You have now set the precedent that you don't have to get sacks to be defensive MVP, because you're this magic stat. And we talk about this. This is what the downfall of baseball was, in my opinion, is we stopped looking at like players as heroes, and it was always player A, player B. And it was all these other things like R war, B war, this war, that war, this FIP, that FIP. And we stopped concerning ourselves with the players, right? We looked at all this like, oh, hey, this guy is that much better than a replacement player. We're like, how do you know that? Like, what if the replacement player goes in there and just plays amazing, right? But we come up with these now stats of pass rush win rate. Okay. Well, I would assume what constitutes a win rate? Because obviously it's not sacks, because he didn't have any. He finished, I don't know what he finished, outside of the top 5 in sacks, I believe, this year. Like, it's just, I don't get it, man. Like, so I have more of an issue with him winning it. Not that he's a bad player by any stretch of the imagination. He's, in my opinion, he's the top 5 pass rusher in the league. But we talk about this now. We've set this precedent where we're looking at their ability to get past your defender as a win, and like somehow that quantifies you as the best player. It's just I don't know, man. It's a weird road and a weird just thing that we're going down. And I'm not sure what if we set this precedent now, what's this going to look like in 5 years from now? Because you don't think PFF is going to keep coming up with imaginary stats.
Right.
That's their business, right?
Yeah,
That's what they do.
Yep.
I I don't know, man. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that or you just let me ramble. I appreciate it, but
No, not really any thoughts. I mean, we'll probably just get ready to wrap it up. But I think, I mean, it's I get it from the perspective of there are lots of guys that that probably aren't going to always be rewarded in getting a sack per se. That doesn't mean you're not an effective pass rusher, because the disruption of the pocket, the speeding up, all of the things that we talk about in the playoff games leading up to, can you change Mahomes' rhythm and speed up his timing and, all of those things. Those are all wins, even if they're not sacks. Now, of course, there are quarterback hurries and those types of things that take that into consideration. But I mean, I think there's relevance, or can be, in those stats. It's not a stat I care about. Like, I don't sit there and look at what is the win rate of any individual guy. Like, I couldn't possibly care less about it. But I see it as like how it's like when you get into tiebreakers and eventually you get to like strength of schedule and these types of things. Like, to me, it's like that's what it would boil down to. If it was like, okay, these two guys each have 15 sacks and X number of hurries and deflections and whatever. Okay, let's get it down to here. What's their win rate? Because did they have someone really good on the other side who was then rushing the quarterback right into them, and they were getting, kind of almost garbage sacks, if you will, which are still sacks. They still matter, but they were being heavily aided. Or were they really the ones out there consistently beating their man and forcing the play to be able to happen? And, I don't know, because, you think about it, who would you rather go against, right? If I'm a defensive player, a defensive lineman, a pass rusher, and I have the opportunity to go against, I gotta try to pass rush against Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes, or I don't know who's like a very kind of slow, unathletic, Kirk Cousins, right? Or somebody like that, right? Like clearly life's a whole lot easier if I'm in the same division as a guy like that and I get to go against him versus having to chase a Lamar Jackson all over the field. And I might not get those sacks, but it doesn't mean I wasn't doing a great job. It doesn't mean I wasn't beating my guy consistently. It's just then again, I got to go against the guy who's running a 4.4 and is the most elusive guy on the field. And yeah, I'm not that guy. I can't get that sack, but I still am winning. And, my guess is maybe there's a theory there that it's a way to kind of create a level playing field among players, just to say, okay, well, even separate from sacks, are you actually even beating the guy in front of you? Because if you're not beating him, none of the rest of it really matters anyway. But yeah, I don't know though. Not sure the answer.
Yeah, same. I don't want to get into all these nuances. Like, it just, it is what it is, man. Like, it's one of those things. I just, we start getting into these numbers and like this and that, like just FIP and BIP and bop and pop. Like, it's just like it's just not what football is about. So we'll see. I don't want to set a precedence of like some stat that like someone else decides, like who even decides if that's a correct way. We have these sets of stats that we look at and we see. So we'll see.
Yeah. So anyway, I just thought that was a good way to end not only this episode, but also end football season.
Dang, man.
It was a good season. It was a fast season. And look, let's face it, right? The next season's right around the corner. The draft is not that far away. Then it's going to be training camp, and there's going to be lots of moves going on. We will, still have plenty to talk about for people who want to discuss sports and talk football. There's still going to be plenty to talk about year round because the NFL's a year round business now. But this was definitely a fun, interesting, exciting football season. A lot of great things to see. So yeah, ended. It's over. It always feels like it's too soon for it to be done, but it's done.
It's wild, man. Yeah, like I think we got like 290 some days now till opening game.
That's right.
We may want to do it. We should do maybe this will be next week. We'll talk about it, but maybe a look back of like what the season was. I mean, there were so many good storylines. That came out. Like you got the emergence of potentially amazing Hall of Fame caliber quarterbacks, and
there's a lot of good stuff, man. This is a good season. A lot of storylines that are going to be fascinating going into next season
for sure. Yeah.
All right. Well, with that having been said, I think we can wrap this sucker up. We've done our job as our community service. We've entertained our global audience. We appreciate everybody for checking us out. And yeah, keep it up. We'll keep it up. And yeah, thanks for joining us, everybody.
All right. Good
Have
night.
a good night.